You won't believe what happened when this entitled HOA Karen thought she could treat my ranch like her personal shortcut. Picture this: a sprawling Texas ranch that's been in my family for generations, complete with rolling hills, grazing cattle, and a sturdy gate that's meant to keep things secure. But then comes Karen, the self-appointed queen of our loosely organized homeowners association, who decides my gate is her express lane to the main road. She kept barreling through without a care, ignoring my polite requests, and leaving ruts in the dirt that messed with my livestock paths. Little did she know, I was done playing nice. I set a trap that would flip the script and make her regret every unauthorized drive-through. This is the story of how I turned the tables with a clever legal twist that left her fuming and me victorious. Stick around because the build-up is tense, the revenge is sweet, and the win is epic. Let's dive in. I remember the day it all started like it was yesterday. It was a crisp autumn morning in 2023, the kind where the sun filters through the oak trees and casts long shadows across the pasture. I'd just finished my coffee on the porch of my old ranch house, watching my herd of Angus cattle munch on the fresh grass. The ranch wasn't huge by Texas standards, about 200 acres, but it was mine, inherited from my grandfather who built it from scratch after World War II. He always said the land was our legacy, a place where hard work met freedom, away from the city's hustle. But freedom has its boundaries, and ours came with an HOA, one of those rural associations that popped up when a few neighbors decided to organize for shared road maintenance and water rights. It was supposed to be simple, but power corrupts. And that's where Karen entered the picture. Her name was actually Marlene, but Karen fit like a glove. Mid-50s, perfectly coiffed blonde hair, always in designer jeans and boots that looked like they'd never seen mud. She lived on the adjacent property, a McMansion plopped down on what used to be open land, complete with a pool and a 3-car garage. Karen chaired the HOA board, elected unopposed because no one else wanted the hassle. At first she seemed harmless, sending out newsletters about fence repairs and holiday potlucks. But power went to her head. She'd nitpick everything: a neighbor's mailbox color, someone's overgrown hedges, even finding old Mr. Jenkins for his vintage truck that didn't fit the aesthetic. I stayed out of it, focusing on my cattle and the occasional hay baling. That is, until she targeted my gate. The gate in question was at the edge of my property, a heavy metal swing gate with a chain lock leading to a dirt road that connected to the county highway. It wasn't public. It was my private access, but it shaved about 5 minutes off the drive for folks on the east side of the development. I'd always been neighborly, letting people through if they asked. But Karen never asked. The first time I caught her, I was fixing a fence post near the gate when her shiny SUV came roaring up. She honked impatiently, like I was in her way, then leaned out the window. "Open it up, will ya?" "I'm late for my Pilates class." I raised an eyebrow, but being the polite type, I unlatched it and waved her through. "No problem, but next time, could you call ahead?" She just smirked and sped off, kicking up dust that settled on my jeans. That was the beginning. Over the next few weeks, it became a routine. I'd see tire tracks in the mornings, fresh ones cutting through the soft earth, sometimes deep enough to create puddles after rain. My cattle started wandering closer to the road because the ruts disrupted their usual paths, and I had to spend extra time herding them back. I tried talking to her nicely at an HOA meeting, a casual gathering in the community barn where we discussed dues and repairs. "Marlene, about my gate," I started, keeping my tone even. "It's private property, and the constant traffic is wearing down the path. Mind using the main entrance?" She tilted her head, that fake smile plastered on. "Oh, honey, it's just a shortcut. Saves gas, you know. Environmentally friendly." The other neighbors chuckled nervously, but no one backed me up. Mr. Jenkins whispered later, "She's got the board in her pocket. Best not to poke the bear." But the bear kept poking me. One evening, I came home from town to find the gate left wide open. Two of my cows had strayed onto the highway, causing a near miss with a semi-truck. My heart pounded as I rounded them up, sweat dripping down my back despite the cool air. That could have been disastrous. Lost livestock means lost income, and with beef prices fluctuating, I couldn't afford it. I marched over to Karen's house that night, knocking firmly on her door. She answered in a robe, wine glass in hand. "What now?" "Your shortcut almost got my cows killed," I said, voice steady but firm. "Gate was left open." She rolled her eyes. "Must have been the wind. Or maybe you forgot to lock it." I knew it was her. Those SUV tires matched the tracks perfectly. "Please, just stop using it." She shut the door with a huff, muttering about overdramatic ranchers. The emotional toll started building. This ranch wasn't just land, it was memories. My late wife, Sarah, and I had raised our kids here. We'd picnic by the creek, watch sunsets from the hilltop. After she passed from cancer 2 years ago, the place became my sanctuary, a way to feel close to her. Karen's intrusions felt like violations, chipping away at that peace. Nights I'd lie awake, hearing phantom engines, worrying about the gate. Financially, it stung too. The ruts meant more gravel to haul, more time away from actual ranching. I confided in my son, Jake, over the phone. He was in college, studying agriculture. "Dad, document everything. HOAs hate lawsuits." That planted a seed. As winter approached, the incidents escalated. Karen started bringing friends through. Her book club ladies, all in matching SUVs, treating my gate like a VIP entrance. One day, I found a discarded coffee cup near the latch. Starbucks logo mocking me. I installed a camera, a simple trail cam hidden in the bushes, solar-powered and discreet. The footage was gold. Karen's vehicle, license plate clear, cruising through multiple times a week. I printed stills and emailed the HOA board, politely requesting they address the trespassing. Karen's response? A fine slapped on me for unauthorized surveillance on association property. Wait, what? The gate was mine! But she twisted the bylaws, claiming the road easement gave them oversight. The board, spineless, approved it. $200 due immediately. That fine burned. I paid it to avoid escalation, but inside anger simmered. I wasn't rich. Every dollar counted toward Jake's tuition or vet bills. Friends suggested confronting her physically. But that wasn't me. I'm a thinker, a planner. Grandpa taught me chess on rainy days. Always 3 moves ahead. So I started researching. Late nights poring over property deeds, HOA covenants, state laws on trespassing. Turns out, the easement was for emergencies only, not daily use. Karen was breaking rules she enforced on others. I joined online forums, reading HOA horror stories. People fighting back with audits, elections, even class actions. One post stood out. A guy who turned his neighbor's shortcut into a legal nightmare with barriers and signs. The plan began forming. But first, more evidence. I upgraded the camera to HD, adding motion sensors. Karen's drives became predictable. Mornings to town, evenings back. One rainy day, her SUV got stuck in the mud I'd forgotten to fill. She called a tow truck, which tore up more ground. I watched from afar, smirking. She glared toward my house, knowing I saw. That night, an anonymous note in my mailbox. Mind your business or face consequences. Threats now? Game on, tension mounted as spring bloomed. Flowers dotted the fields. But my mood was stormy. Karen ramped up, complaining about my cattle's odor at meetings, pushing for noise ordinances against my tractor. Petty, but effective. Neighbors started siding with her to avoid trouble. Isolation set in. Even Mr. Jenkins avoided eye contact. Emotionally, it hit hard. Sarah would have laughed it off, but alone, doubt crept in. Was I overreacting? No, this was my home. I confided in a lawyer friend who reviewed my docs. You've got a case for trespass. but make it ironclad. I began the revenge phase subtly. Posted no trespassing signs, bright and legal. Karen ignored them. Then I chained the gate tighter, with a combo lock. She honked one day, demanding entry. I strolled over casually. "Sorry, Marlene. Private property." She fumed. "This is ridiculous. I'll report you." "For what?" "Following the law?" She U-turned, tires spinning. "Victory? Not yet." She started a petition to open access for community benefit. Half the neighbors signed, fearing her wrath. That's when I dug deeper. Audited HOA finances. Public records showed discrepancies. Karen's expenses included personal spa days, billed as board retreats. Juicy. I anonymously tipped the state attorney general. But that was backup. The real trap? I consulted a surveyor. Turns out, the easement line was misdrawn years ago. My gate was fully on my land. With proof, I could relocate it. Planning intensified. I bought materials, new fencing, posts, even a cattle guard. That metal grid that vehicles hate but cows avoid. Expensive but worth it. Jake came home for break, helping dig. "Dad, this is genius." We worked under stars, bonding over strategy. Emotional high, turning pain into purpose. Cliffhanger moment. One night, alarm blared. Camera showed Karen with bolt cutters, sneaking to the gate. Gotcha. I called the sheriff. Non-emergency. Deputies arrived as she clipped the chain. "Trespassing and vandalism," I said, showing footage. Her face? Priceless shock. Karen's face, illuminated by the sheriff's flashlight, was a mask of disbelief. Her perfectly manicured hands clutching the bolt cutters like a kid caught stealing cookies. The deputies, two guys I knew from high school, didn't look thrilled to be out at midnight, but they took it seriously. "Ma'am, you need to explain this," Deputy Harris said, his voice calm but firm. Karen stammered, her usual confidence crumbling. "This is a misunderstanding. That gate's been open for years. It's practically public." I stood back, arms crossed, letting the trail cam footage do the talking. I'd emailed it to Harris en route, and he'd seen her in action, snipping my chain like she owned the place. "Private property, Marlene," I said, echoing my earlier standoff. "You've been told." The deputies issued her a warning for trespassing and property damage. No arrest, but a formal report. She stormed off, muttering about lawyers, her SUV's taillights fading into the dark. I thanked the deputies, heart pounding with a mix of adrenaline and triumph. This wasn't the end, but it was a start. Karen had underestimated me, and I was just warming up. The next morning, I woke to a flurry of HOA emails. Karen had spun the incident into a sob story, claiming I'd entrapped her to humiliate her in front of the community. She rallied her book club posse, who flooded the HOA inbox with complaints about my hostile gate policies. One email even called me a reclusive cowboy, threatening the neighborhood's harmony. Reclusive? I'd hosted barbecues for half these people. But Karen's influence was strong. She'd mastered the art of playing victim while twisting the knife. I sipped my coffee, staring at the sunrise over my pasture, and felt that familiar ache. This land was my connection to Sarah, to our kids' laughter, to decades of memories. Letting Karen win would mean letting her tarnish that. No way. I called. Jake, who was back at college but glued to our group chat. "She's escalating, Dad. Hit back harder." He was right. I'd caught her on camera, but one warning wouldn't stop her. She'd likely double down, and I needed to be ready. I spent the day reinforcing my plan. First, I met with the surveyor again, a grizzled guy named Tom who'd mapped half the county. He confirmed the easement misdraw. My gate was 100% on my land, and the HOA had no claim. "You could move it 10 feet west, cut off their shortcut entirely," he said, pointing at the plat map. legal as apple pie. That was the cornerstone of my trap, but I needed more to make it stick. Back home, I checked the trail cam. Karen hadn't returned, but her SUV tracks were fresh near the gate, like she'd scoped it out. I grinned. Let her try. The new cattle guard was half installed, a beast of steel bars that'd make her SUV bounce like a toy car. Jake and I had spent nights digging the trench, sweating despite the cool spring air. The physical work felt good, like reclaiming my space. But Karen's next move came faster than expected. At the next HOA meeting, held in the community barn, she proposed a new rule. All private gates affecting community access needed board approval. It was a direct shot at me. The room buzzed. Neighbors glanced my way, some apologetic, others avoiding eye contact. Mr. Jenkins, bless him, spoke up. "Marlene, that sounds like overreach. His gates, his business." She shot him a look that could curdle milk. "It's for safety, Harold. We can't have rogue ranchers blocking roads." I stood, heart steady. "That gate's on my land, per the county surveyor. No easement applies. You're welcome to check the records." I slid a copy of the plat map across the table. Karen's eyes narrowed, but she pivoted. "We'll vote next meeting. Let's move on." She thought she'd steamroll me with numbers. Half the board were her cronies. But I saw an opening. I'd been digging into the HOA bylaws, and they allowed for special elections if 20% of members petitioned. Karen's reign relied on apathy. Most folks didn't vote. If I could rally enough neighbors, I could flip the board. That night, I knocked on doors. First stop, Mr. Jenkins. He invited me in, his living room cluttered with model trains and old photos. "She fined me for my truck, you know," he grumbled. "Said it lowered property values." I showed him the financial discrepancies I'd found. Karen's spa days billed as board expenses. His eyes lit up. "That's fraud. I'm in." Next was Maria, a single mom who'd been hit with fines for her kid's basketball hoop. She was skeptical, but hated Karen's bullying. "If you can prove she's crooked, I'll sign." By week's end, I had 15 signatures, enough for a petition. I filed it with the HOA secretary, a quiet guy who wasn't in Karen's pocket. The election was set for June. Karen didn't take it lying down. The next day, a county inspector showed up, claiming a complaint about my unsafe gate. Karen's doing, no doubt. The inspector, a bored guy in his 30s, walked the property with me. "Looks fine," he said, eyeing the new signs and lock. "Whoever called this in wasted my time." I offered him coffee, and he laughed about HOA busybodies. Another win, but small. Karen's real attack came via gossip. At the local diner, I overheard whispers. I was unneighborly, paranoid, even dangerous. It stung. Sarah used to say I was the guy who'd give you the shirt off his back. Now I was the villain? Doubt crept in, but Jake's texts kept me grounded. "You're fighting for what's yours. Don't let her gaslight you." Emotionally, it was a roller coaster. I'd walk the ranch at dusk, the smell of hay and earth grounding me. But memories of Sarah hit hard. She'd have loved this fight, her fiery side cheering me on. Financially, the cattle guard and legal consults drained my savings, $3,000 and counting. But the plan was coming together. I finished the cattle guard, a gleaming barrier no SUV could cross without a fight. I moved the gate west, per Tom's survey, adding a second lock for good measure. The new setup was legal, ironclad, and a blatant "stay out" to Karen. I posted updated no trespassing signs, each with a tiny camera logo to spook her. Then, the trap's next layer. I filed a formal trespass complaint with the sheriff, using my footage and the deputy's report. They issued Karen a citation, $500 fine, Small, but public. Word spread fast. At the diner, Maria gave me a nod. Heard you got her good. But Karen wasn't done. She emailed the HOA announcing a community safety fund to address problematic properties. My ranch was the obvious target. She was raising dues to fund it. $100 extra per household. Neighbors grumbled. Even her allies wavered. I saw my chance. I organized a secret meeting at Mr. Jenkins's place. 10 neighbors showed up, cramped in his living room. I laid out the evidence, Karen's financial shenanigans, the illegal easement use, my trespass proof. Maria stood up. She fined me for my kid's hoop, but uses our dues for her spa days. I'm done. We drafted a slate for the election. Mr. Jenkins for president, Maria for treasurer, me for secretary. Our platform: transparency, no petty fines, respect for property rights. We printed flyers, kept it low-key to avoid Karen's radar. The night before the election, I couldn't sleep. I walked to the gate, stars bright overhead, and checked the cattle guard. Solid as rock. The camera blinked, ready for action. I felt Sarah's presence, like a whisper in the breeze. You've got this. But Karen had one last trick. The morning of the vote, her SUV rolled up. Not to my gate, but to the community barn. She'd brought pastries and coffee, schmoozing voters. Don't let one man's vendetta ruin our community, she cooed. My stomach sank. Was my trap enough? The morning of the HOA election felt like a showdown in an old western, the kind where the town square hums with tension before the clock strikes noon. I pulled into the community barn's gravel lot, my truck rattling over the uneven ground, and saw Karen holding court by a folding table decked out with donuts and coffee urns. She was all smiles, shaking hands, her voice dripping with charm as she chatted up neighbors. We need unity, not division, she said loudly, glancing my way. I nodded politely, but inside my blood simmered. She'd turned my fight for my own land into a campaign against me, painting me as the grumpy rancher out to ruin the neighborhood vibe. But I had my own ammunition, weeks of evidence, a solid plan, and a growing crew of fed-up neighbors. The trap was set, and today I'd spring it. Inside the barn, the air smelled of sawdust and stale coffee. Folding chairs were set up in rows, about 30 people milling around, half the HOA's members. Not a huge crowd, but enough to tip the scales. Karen's cronies, the book club ladies, hovered near her, passing out flyers with her face plastered on them, promising community progress. My team, Mr. Jenkins, Maria, and a few others, kept it low-key, handing out our own flyers. Simple, black and white, listing Karen's shady expenses and my gate's legal status. I caught Maria's eye. She gave a thumbs up, her face fierce. She'd been rallying parents, sick of Karen's fines on their kids' toys and basketball hoops. Mr. Jenkins worked the older crowd, his gravelly voice cutting through the chatter. She's been fleecing us for years, he muttered to a gray-haired couple. They nodded, clutching our flyer. The meeting started with Karen at the podium, her usual power pose, shoulders back, chin up. She ran through the agenda. Road repairs, a new park bench, then her safety fund to manage problem properties. Everyone knew she meant my ranch. We can't let one person's selfishness block community access, she said, her eyes flicking to me. A few neighbors murmured agreement, but others shifted uncomfortably. I raised my hand. Mind if I clarify something? Karen's smile tightened, but she couldn't say no without looking petty. Go ahead, I stood, holding up the surveyor's plat map. This is my land. The gate's on my property, not the easement. I've got the county records to prove it. I passed copies to the front row. Marlene's been using it without permission, damaging my land, and when I locked it, she cut the chain. Sheriff's report confirms it. Gasps rippled through the room. Karen's face reddened. That's a private matter, she snapped. Private? I countered. You made it public when you trespassed. Mr. Jenkins piped up. And what about those spa days billed as board retreats? We've got the receipts. He held up my audit printouts, showing thousands in questionable expenses. The room erupted in whispers. Karen tried to regain control, banging the gavel. This is off topic. Let's vote. But the damage was done. Neighbors were flipping through our flyers, muttering about dues and fines. The election was a secret ballot. And as we marked our slips, I felt a flicker of hope. Maria squeezed my arm. We've got this. The votes were tallied by the secretary, a neutral guy named Paul. When he read the results, my heart skipped. Mr. Jenkins as president, Maria as treasurer, me as secretary. Karen was out, her cronies replaced by our slate. She sat frozen, her coffee untouched as cheers broke out. A small win, but the war wasn't over. After the meeting, Karen cornered me outside. You think this changes anything? I'll sue you for defamation. Her voice was low, venomous. I kept calm. Go ahead, my lawyer's ready. She stormed off, and I exhaled, the weight of the moment sinking in. The board shift was huge, but Karen wasn't the type to slink away. I needed to tighten the trap. Back at the ranch, I checked the camera footage. Sure enough, Karen's SUV had swung by the gate the night before, idling as if testing my defenses. The cattle guard gleamed in the moonlight, a silent dare. I called Tom, the surveyor, to triple-check the new gate placement. Bulletproof, he said. She tries anything, it's criminal trespass now. I also met with my lawyer friend, Carla, who drafted a cease and desist letter to Karen, citing the sheriff's report and state law. We mailed it certified, ensuring she'd sign for it. Carla grinned. She's gonna hate this. The emotional toll was heavy. Winning the election felt good, but the gossip lingered. At the feed store, a cashier I'd known for years gave me a wary look. Heard you're causing trouble with the HOA. I forced a smile, paid for my grain, and left. Nights were the worst. Alone in the house, I'd hear Sarah's voice in my head, urging me to keep going. I missed her calm, her way of making any fight feel winnable. Jake called, sensing my mood. Dad, you're kicking her ass legally. Stay focused. He was right, but the isolation gnawed. Friends I'd barbecued with now dodged me, fearing Karen's wrath or believing her lies. Financially, it was tighter than ever. The cattle guard and legal fees had cost $5,000, eating into my emergency fund. Beef prices were down, and a vet bill for a sick calf added another $800. But the ranch was my lifeline, its open fields a reminder of why I fought. I walked the property daily, checking fences, the gate, the cameras. One evening, I found fresh tire marks, not Karen's SUV, but a pickup I didn't recognize. A friend of hers, maybe. I upped the ante, installing a motion-activated floodlight by the gate. If anyone came snooping, they'd be lit up like a stadium. Karen's next move was predictable, but bold. She filed a complaint with the HOA, now under our control, claiming my cattle guard was a safety hazard. She demanded its removal and a fine for altering community access. At the next board meeting, I presented the surveyor's report and photos of the cattle guard, built to county specs. Maria, now treasurer, shut it down. No violation here. Motion denied. Karen's allies, outnumbered, stayed quiet. She left in a huff, but not before whispering to a friend loud enough for me to hear, "He'll regret this. I didn't regret a thing. Yet." The trap was working, but Karen was slippery. Online, I found posts on a local forum, anonymous, but clearly her, calling me a land-hoarding tyrant. I laughed it off, but it stung. I countered by starting a blog, Ranch Life, where I shared stories of the land, Sarah's memory, and the Gate saga, carefully worded to avoid legal trouble. Neighbors started commenting, some supportive, others curious. It was a small way to reclaim the narrative. The real breakthrough came from the state. My anonymous tip about Karen's finances had triggered an audit. An investigator called, asking for my records. I sent everything, spreadsheets, receipts, even Karen's spa day invoices. "This could be fraud," he said. "We'll follow up." I didn't celebrate yet. Karen had deep pockets and deeper connections, but the net was tightening. One night, the floodlight blazed. Camera caught a figure. Not Karen, but a guy in a hoodie, spray painting my gate. "Keep out" in red letters, as if I'd done it to myself. Amateur move. I called the sheriff again, who traced the guy to Karen's nephew, a local contractor. He confessed she'd paid him $200 to send a message. Another citation for her, another crack in her armor. As summer loomed, I felt the tide turning. The election win, the sheriff's reports, the state audit. Each was a piece of the trap snapping shut. But Karen was desperate, and desperate people get dangerous. At dawn, I found my gate's lock tampered with. Tool marks clear. No footage this time. The camera's battery had died. Coincidence? Doubtful. I replaced it with a heavier padlock and added a second camera, hidden better. The ranch was my castle, and I'd defend it. Emotionally, I was fraying but resolute. I planted wildflowers by the gate, a nod to Sarah's love of color. It felt like defiance, turning her memory into strength. The trap was ready for its final spring. But what would Karen do next? The summer heat settled over the ranch like a heavy blanket, the kind that makes you sweat just standing still. I was out checking the cattle guard at dawn, the air already thick with the scent of dry grass and dust. The new padlock gleamed, untouched since the tampering attempt, and the second camera, hidden in a fake birdhouse, blinked steadily. Karen's nephew's stunt with the spray paint had backfired, landing her another citation and a $750 fine for vandalism. The sheriff's report was public, and whispers at the diner turned from "that crazy rancher" to "Karen's losing it." But I wasn't naive. She was cornered, not defeated. Cornered snakes strike hardest, and I braced for her next move. My trap was nearly complete, but it needed one final push to bring her down for good. The ranch, my home, Sarah's legacy depended on it. The state audit was my ace in the hole. After weeks of waiting, the investigator called with news. Karen's board retreats weren't just unethical, they were illegal. She'd funneled $12,000 of HOA funds into personal expenses, from spa days to a new hot tub she claimed was for community events. The state was building a case for embezzlement, and my records had been key. "We'll need you to testify if it goes to court," the investigator said. I agreed, my pulse quickening. This wasn't just about my gate anymore. It was about justice for everyone she'd bullied. But I kept it quiet, not wanting to tip her off. Instead, I focused on the ranch, tightening every detail of my defense. Karen's next attack came through the HOA. Even off the board, she had pull. She rallied her allies to propose a new bylaw. Any property modification, like my cattle guard, required a 75% community vote. It was a desperate bid to undo my gate's relocation. At the board meeting, held in the barn under flickering fluorescent lights, I countered with facts. Maria, now treasurer, presented the budget, showing how Karen's safety fund had drained reserves while my cattle guard cost the HOA nothing. Mr. Jenkins, as president, read the surveyor's report aloud, confirming my gate's legality. The vote failed, only her book club clique supported it. Karen's face was stone, but her eyes burned. As she left, she brushed past me, muttering, "This isn't over." It wasn't. The next day, I found a letter from her lawyer in my mailbox, claiming I'd defamed her by sharing the audit findings with neighbors. It demanded a public apology and $10,000 for emotional distress. I laughed, then called Carla. She read it and snorted. "This is a scare tactic. File a counterclaim for harassment." We did, citing her trespassing, vandalism, and threats. The legal fees were piling up, $7,500 total now, but I saw it as an investment. Every dollar spent was a brick in the wall I was building around Karen's schemes. Emotionally, I was walking a tightrope. The ranch was my refuge, but it felt under siege. I'd wake to nightmares of losing it, of Karen somehow turning the community against me completely. Jake sensed it during our calls. "Dad, you're close. She's panicking." He was right. Her moves were sloppy now. The spray paint, the weak bylaw push, the laughable lawsuit. But doubt lingered. What if she found a loophole? What if the community, tired of the drama, sided with her just for peace? I pushed through, planting more wildflowers by the gate, their yellow and purple blooms a quiet rebellion. Sarah would have loved them. Then came the escalation I hadn't expected. One morning, I found my cattle guard covered in gravel. Someone had dumped a truckload overnight, rendering it useless. The cameras caught a blurry figure in a hoodie, no clear face, but the pickup matched one I'd seen at Karen's house. I called the sheriff, who sighed. "We'll investigate, but without a face, it's tough." I spent hours shoveling the gravel, sweat soaking my shirt, anger fueling every scoop. This wasn't just about access. It was personal. Karen wanted to break me. I doubled down. I rented a backhoe to clear the gravel faster, costing $400 but saving my back. Then I installed a third camera, this one with night vision, and added a solar-powered alarm that'd blare if anyone touched the gate. Neighbors started noticing. Maria stopped by with her kids, who ran through the wildflowers. "You're fighting for all of us," she said. Karen fined me again for my son's bike in the driveway. I handed her a copy of the cease and desist letter. "Show her this." She's on thin ice. Word spread. People were fed up. At the diner, a guy I barely knew bought my coffee. "Give her hell," he whispered. The trap's final piece was logistical. I'd learned Karen was hosting a big 4th of July party, inviting half the county to her McMansion. She'd bragged about it at the last meeting, calling it a community unity event. I saw my chance. Her guests would likely try my gate, expecting the old shortcut. I posted new signs: private property, use main entrance, violators prosecuted. I also tipped off the sheriff about potential trespassers, sharing my footage history. Carla drafted a public notice, posted on the HOA website, reiterating the gate's status and warning against vandalism. It was polite, but clear. Mess with my ranch. Face consequences. July 4th arrived, the air buzzing with fireworks and barbecue smoke. I stayed home, monitoring the cameras. Sure enough, around noon, a caravan of SUVs rolled up, Karen's guests, led by her own vehicle. She stopped at the cattle guard, honked, then got out, gesturing wildly. The floodlights snapped on, cameras rolling. She tried to open the gate, but the new lock held firm. Her guests, confused, milled around. One guy, probably tipsy, climbed the fence, triggering the alarm. A deafening wail echoed, and he scrambled back, cursing. Karen's face was a storm cloud. She called someone, likely her lawyer, but no one could argue with the signs and locks. The sheriff arrived within 20 minutes, lights flashing. I watched from my porch, sipping iced tea, as Deputy Harris lectured the group. "This is private property. You've been warned," Karen argued, pointing at the gate, but Harris held up my notice. "Ma'am, you're trespassing again. I suggest you leave." Her guests peeled out, embarrassed, heading for the main entrance. Karen followed, her SUV kicking up dust. I grinned, trap sprung. That night, the blog blew up. I'd posted a vague update. "Gates secure. Communities watching." Neighbors commented, some with clapping emojis, others sharing their own Karen stories. The state audit news broke the next day. A local paper ran a story, naming Karen in the embezzlement probe. The community was abuzz. Her party flop was the talk of the diner. Mr. Jenkins called. "She's done, son. You nailed her." But I wasn't celebrating yet. Karen's silence felt ominous. I kept the cameras on, checked the locks daily. Financially, I was stretched thin, $8,200 in costs now, with another vet bill looming. Emotionally, I was drained but buoyed by small wins. The wildflowers bloomed brighter, a reminder of why I fought. Jake texted, "You're a legend, Dad." I laughed, but the fight wasn't over. Karen had one last card to play, and I had to be ready. Late one night, the alarm blared again. I grabbed my flashlight, heart racing. The camera showed a tow truck at the gate, a guy prying at the cattle guard. Karen's final gambit? I called the sheriff, but as I stepped outside, headlights flashed in the distance. She wasn't giving up. The alarm's wail cut through the night like a siren, jolting me from a half-sleep. My heart slammed against my ribs as I grabbed my flashlight and phone, the camera feed already loading. There it was, a tow truck idling by my gate, its headlights glaring across the cattle guard. A guy in a dark jacket was crouched, working a crowbar under the steel bars, trying to pry them up. Karen's doing, no doubt, her final desperate swing to dismantle my trap. I dialed the sheriff, my voice steady despite the adrenaline. "Harris, it's me. Someone's vandalizing my gate again. Got it on camera." He promised to be there in 15 minutes. I pulled on boots, grabbed my jacket, and stepped into the cool night air, the scent of dew-soaked grass mixing with my anger. This was my land, my home, Sarah's memory. Karen wasn't getting away with this. I stayed back, hidden by the oak trees, watching the guy work. The floodlight bathed him in white, his face clear on the night vision camera. Another of Karen's hired hands, probably. The tow truck's logo matched a local company I'd seen parked at her place during her party. Amateur mistake. I snapped photos with my phone, zooming in on the license plate. The guy didn't notice, too focused on the cattle guard, grunting as he failed to budget. That thing was bolted into concrete. Good luck, buddy. Headlights flashed in the distance, Karen's SUV lurking down the road. She was watching, too cowardly to get her hands dirty herself. The sheriff arrived faster than expected, lights off to avoid spooking the guy. Deputy Harris and his partner crept up, catching him mid-pry. "Drop the crowbar!" Harris barked. The guy froze, then bolted for the truck, but Harris was faster, grabbing his arm. I stepped forward, flashlight steady. "Caught him red-handed," I said, showing the camera feed. The guy, sweating and stammering, claimed he was just checking the gate for a client. Harris wasn't buying it. Client's name? The guy glanced at Karen's SUV, now peeling away. "Didn't catch it," he mumbled. Harris cuffed him for attempted vandalism and hauled him to the cruiser. "We'll trace the truck," he said to me. "Looks like your neighbor's in deep now." Back at the house, I uploaded the footage to my cloud drive, triple backed up. Carla, my lawyer, was thrilled when I called at dawn. "This is gold. Trespassing, vandalism, now conspiracy to damage property? She's cooked." We added the incident to our counterclaim, pushing for damages to cover my costs, $8,500 and climbing. The emotional weight was crushing, though. I sat on the porch, coffee cold, staring at the wildflowers by the gate. They swayed in the breeze, their colors vivid even in the gray morning light. Sarah's voice echoed in my head. "Don't let her steal your peace." I wouldn't. But the fight was taking its toll. Sleepless nights, constant vigilance, the ache of being the neighborhood pariah. Karen's next move was legal, not physical. Her lawyer sent a cease and desist, claiming my cameras violated her privacy. Laughable. She was on my land, not hers. Carla shot back with a letter citing state law. No expectation of privacy during criminal acts. The HOA, now under Mr. Jenkins's leadership, stayed out of it. But Karen tried rallying neighbors again. She posted on the community forum, calling my gate a dangerous obstruction and demanding a recall election. Only a few replied, her allies dwindling. Maria texted me screenshots. "She's losing steam. Keep going." The state audit was the real game changer. The investigator emailed, confirming charges were being filed against Karen for embezzlement. They'd frozen her HOA accounts, and the local paper ran a follow-up. Local HOA chair faces fraud allegations. Neighbors started talking openly. Her fines, her bullying, her lies. At the diner, Mr. Jenkins clapped my shoulder. "You did this, son." Exposed her. I shrugged, but pride flickered. Still, I braced for retaliation. Karen wasn't the type to go quietly. I tightened security. New motion sensors, a louder alarm, and a backup generator for the cameras. The ranch felt like a fortress, but it was worth it. Jake came home for a weekend, helping me reinforce the gate posts. We worked side by side, sweat mixing with laughter as he mimicked Karen's Pilates excuse. "Gotta save gas, Dad," he teased. Those moments grounded me, reminding me why I fought. For him, for Sarah, for the land. But the costs were brutal. $9,200 now, with another lawyer bill looming. Beef prices were still low, and a drought warning meant higher feed costs. I sold a heifer to cover expenses, a gut punch. Each cow was part of the herd Sarah had loved. The community was shifting. Maria organized a barbecue at her place, inviting everyone but Karen's clique. 20 neighbors showed up, kids playing in the yard, adults swapping stories of Karen's overreach. One guy admitted she'd fined him for a non-compliant mailbox color, beige instead of taupe. We laughed, but it was bittersweet. Her reign had hurt people, financially and emotionally. I shared my blog post about the Gates saga, leaving out the audit details to stay safe. Comments poured in. "Stand your ground." She tried to fine my dog for barking. The tide had turned, but I stayed wary. Karen's party flop had ripple effects. Her social status tanked, her book club canceled their next meeting, and her McMansion's driveway was empty most days. But she wasn't done. One evening, I got a call from Paul, the HOA secretary. She's pushing for a county ordinance to force gate access. Claims it's for emergency services. I groaned. Clever move, using safety to mask her vendetta. I called Tom, the surveyor, who laughed. "Emergency access? The main road's wider and paved." She's grasping. Still, I met with the county planner, showing my records and the sheriff's reports. He dismissed her proposal outright. "Your gate's legal. She's wasting our time. The trap was closing." Carla filed for a restraining order against Karen, citing her pattern of harassment. Trespassing, vandalism, threats. The judge granted a temporary order, barring her from my property or contacting me. When she was served at her house, I saw it from my porch, deputies at her door. Her face was pure rage. I didn't gloat, but damn, it felt good. The blog exploded again, neighbors sharing it across social media. Ranch Life had 500 followers now, some from outside the county, drawn to the David versus Goliath vibe. Emotionally, I was frayed but resolute. Nights were easier with the restraining order, but I still checked the cameras obsessively. The wildflowers kept blooming. A quiet victory. Jake sent a care package, coffee, a new hat, a note saying, "You're winning, Dad." Financially, I was on edge. $10,000 spent, with the counterclaims still pending. But the ranch was thriving, cattle healthy, fields green despite the drought. I walked the pasture at dusk, the sky streaked with pink, feeling Sarah's presence. "Almost there," I whispered. The final blow came unexpectedly. The state investigator called. Karen had settled, pleading to lesser charges to avoid jail. She'd pay $15,000 in restitution to the HOA and step down from all community roles. The news hit the paper, and her McMansion went up for sale. She was leaving. Neighbors texted congratulations, Maria threw another barbecue, and Mr. Jenkins proposed a toast. "To freedom from Karens." I laughed, but my eyes stung. It wasn't over till she was gone. One night, the cameras caught movement. Not Karen, but a fox, darting past the gate. I smiled, tension easing. The trap had worked, But had she learned her lesson? Or was one last surprise waiting? The fox darting past my gate that night felt like a sign. A fleeting, wild thing slipping through the darkness, untamed by Karen's schemes or anyone else's. I stood on the porch, the air cool and thick with the scent of late summer hay, watching the stars blink above the ranch. Karen's for sale sign had gone up a week ago. Her McMansion listed at a price no one in our county could afford. The state's settlement had hit her hard. $15,000 in restitution, her HOA power stripped, her reputation in tatters. The blog, Ranch Life, was buzzing with 800 followers now, strangers cheering my stand against her tyranny. Neighbors waved when I drove by. The diner cashier apologized for believing the gossip, and Maria's barbecue had become a weekly thing. Kids running through sprinklers, while adults swapped stories of freedom from Karen's fines. But I wasn't ready to call it victory. Not yet. Karen was down, but snakes don't slither away quietly, and I'd learned to expect her venom. The trap had sprung, but I needed to seal it shut. The restraining order held firm, keeping her off my land, but I kept the cameras rolling, the alarms armed. One morning, I found a new email from her lawyer. Not a threat this time, but a settlement offer. She'd drop her defamation claim if I paid $5,000 and removed the cattle guard. Carla laughed when I read it to her. She's bluffing. Her case is dead, and she knows it, we countered, demanding she cover my legal fees, $10,500 now, and drop all claims. No response came, but her SUV was gone from her driveway for days. Rumor was she'd rented a condo in town, avoiding the neighbors' stares. I walked the ranch daily, checking the gate, the wildflowers, the cattle. The land felt like mine again, but the cost weighed heavy. Selling that heifer had hurt, and with drought looming, feed prices were climbing. Jake texted, "You're almost there, Dad. Don't let up." Then came the curveball. At an HOA meeting, one of Karen's last allies, a nervous guy named Greg, proposed a community access fund to pave my dirt road, claiming it'd benefit everyone. The catch? It'd force my gate open permanently using eminent domain. My stomach dropped. Greg avoided my eyes, but I smelled Karen's fingerprints. She was using him as a proxy. One last jab from afar. Mr. Jenkins shut it down fast. "That road's private. County says so. Motion's out of order." Maria backed him, presenting the HOA's restored budget. Karen's restitution had covered the shortfall. Greg slunk out, red-faced. The room clapped, a few neighbors chanting, "No more Karens!" I forced a smile, but my gut churned. She was still pulling strings. I dug deeper, calling Tom, the surveyor, to confirm eminent domain laws. "No chance," he said. "Your land's clear, and the county's got bigger problems." Still, I filed a preemptive complaint with the county, attaching every document: surveyor's report, sheriff's citations, my deed. The planner emailed back, "Case closed. Your property's protected." Another bullet dodged, but the stress was relentless. I'd wake to phantom alarms, check the cameras at 2 a.m., haunted by what she might try next. The wildflowers by the gate, now a vibrant sea of yellow and purple, were my anchor. I'd touch their petals, thinking of Sarah's smile, her strength. "You'd be proud," I whispered one dusk, the sky blazing orange. Financially, I was on the edge. Legal fees, security upgrades, and the cattle guard had hit $11,000. A late summer storm damaged a barn roof. Another $2,000 I didn't have. I sold 2 more heifers, each sale a pang in my chest. Sarah had named them, joking they were our retirement plan. But the ranch was surviving, the cattle healthy, the fields holding up despite the drought. Jake came home for Labor Day, bringing a friend who blogged about rural life. They filmed a video for Ranch Life, walking the gate, showing the wildflowers, telling the story, carefully, to avoid legal trouble. It went viral, hitting 10,000 views in a week. Comments poured in. You're a hero! Screw HOAs! A few sent donations via a link Jake added, $500 total, enough to cover a feed bill. I teared up, reading strangers' support. Karen's final move came quietly. One morning, I found a package at my mailbox. No return address. Inside was a typed letter. You win. I'm leaving. But you'll always be the petty rancher who tore this community apart. No signature, but her passive-aggressive tone was unmistakable. Tucked inside was a check for $5,000, marked settlement. I called Carla. Don't cash it, she said. It's a trap to claim you agreed to her terms. We sent it back. Certified, with a note, all claims pending in court. That same day, her for sale sign changed to under contract. She was really gone. The community felt lighter. Maria's barbecues grew, neighbors planning a fall festival without Karen's shadow. Mr. Jenkins proposed dissolving the HOA entirely, letting the county handle roads and water. The vote passed unanimously. I stood at the meeting, throat tight, as they thanked me for exposing her. You saved us, Maria said, hugging me. I shrugged, embarrassed but proud. The blog kept growing, now a platform for other HOA horror stories. I posted about the wildflowers, dedicating them to Sarah. Comments flooded. She's watching you win. The ranch was healing. I fixed the barn roof, planted more flowers, and bought a new calf with the blog donations. Financially, I was still tight, $13,000 spent, with the counterclaim unresolved. But hope flickered. Jake and I walked the pasture one evening, the cattle grazing peacefully, the gate secure. You did it, Dad, he said. I nodded, but my eyes were on the horizon. Karen was gone, her schemes buried, but the fight had changed me. I was tougher, sharper, more protective of this land, this legacy. One last surprise came a week later. The court ruled on our counterclaim, awarding me $12,000 for damages and fees, Karen's payout, funded by her house sale. I used it to pay Carla, fix the barn, and buy back a heifer. The gate stood strong, the cattle guard gleaming, the cameras quiet. At dusk, I sat by the wildflowers, their scent sweet in the air. We won, Sarah, I said, voice cracking. The breeze carried my words, and for the first time in months, I slept without checking the cameras. What's your HOA horror? Comment below.